British Columbia is cracking down on Airbnb type short-term rentals in a hope to get more families into homes. And now the federal government is looking to get in on the action. This from CBC News. Freeland considering action on short-term rentals after BC announces crackdown. Province announced Monday that it would increase fines for rule-breaking owners on apps like Airbnb and VRBO. Now, this is a piece of legislation that went through in British Columbia. I talked about this just the other day. I have another video on it, a link in the description down below. But this is basically in British Columbia, any town over 10,000 people, they're going to make it very, very unaffordable for people who own a piece of property to rent it out in Airbnb if you could rent it out to families long-term sort of thing. Here's Global News talking about the situation in British Columbia.
A long-term crackdown on short-term rentals.
I think at this stage, British Columbians who are looking for a place to rent or to buy understand that there's no silver bullet that's going to address the housing crisis we've faced.
Cozy Victoria apartment.
The goal here is to bring suites back to the long-term rental market, ensuring the only short-term rentals are in a person's primary residence, including a secondary suite that can also be rented out. This applies to all municipalities bigger than 10,000 people. 14 resort-based communities are exempt, including Whistler, Tofino, Soyuz, and Revelstoke.
It will make a difference for every single family that accesses a unit that used to be in a short-term rental and it comes into long-term rental.
Currently, Vancouver, Victoria, and other municipalities have short-term rental bylaws, but almost 50% of operators are breaking those rules. The new legislation will increase fines. It will require short-term rental companies to share data and join a registry.
So let's just look at that. $3,000 a day fine per infraction of up to $1,000. Up from $1,000, sorry. $50,000 maximum fine, up from $2,000. New compliance and enforcement unit track offenders. So they're really cracking down on this, and this is largely due to the fact that there's a massive shortage in housing in British Columbia and all of Canada, actually, for that matter. Now, we're not talking about immigration or anything like that. That's not on the table, but we are going to talk about the fact that there is a massive shortage here, and people who have invested into these properties, over leveraged properties by anyone's stretch of the imagination. I mean, a lot of these places are in the millions of dollars anymore, and it doesn't seem very affordable to rent them out in the normal rental market. So what they're doing is they're renting them out for top dollar in short-term rentals, basically eliminating these homes from the marketplace for anybody to move into. Now, people are, losing their rental properties that they've had long term because, landlords are trying to get out of the market at the moment. And for the landlords that aren't trying to get out of the moment, they're trying to get a little bit more out of it. Now, this is going to probably exacerbate the situation in British Columbia and in Canada by putting another bit of downward pressure on people who own these properties to actually get out of the ownership of it. A lot of the mortgages that they're paying on it won't be covered by the price of long-term rentals. And if they list them on the market for what they're actually paying for this in mortgages, largely people won't be able to afford that either. So they're doing that. Now, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is applauding the BC government for going after short-term rentals. Says the federal government is looking at what it can do on the issue as well. The BC government has introduced new legislation that we just talked about that involves forcing those who offer short-term accommodation to actually live on the property. BC Premier David Eby told news conference on Monday. So essentially in this piece of legislation, if you can still rent out these with Airbnb, but it'll have to be just a suite on your property. You can't buy a piece of property and then have it as an investment for that. Abby said the government has also set to increase fines for short-term rental operators who break municipal bylaws and will require a short-term rental platform to share data with the province for enforcement and tax purposes. This is a positive and important step in the right direction in the area of provincial jurisdiction, Freeland said in a news conference Tuesday. We know that short-term rentals through sites like Airbnb and VRBO mean fewer homes for Canadians to rent and live in full time, especially in urban and populated areas of our country. Now, is this the right move? I mean, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. This does kind of infringe on people's rights of what they can and cannot do with their property, but it comes at a time where this is actually a much needed step in this direction. There's a massive shortage of housing, and you have these opportunistic entrepreneurs, I guess if you would call it that are jumping in and removing housing from the market in a time of a shortage and putting it up for a quick buck. Now, there's a story here from Vancouver Sun saying, I hope my investment doesn't come crashing down on me. BC Airbnb owner responds to the proposed crackdown. Critics worry proposed changes that will only allow short-term rentals in people's primary residence will push listings into the black market. I guarantee you, nobody's going on the black market to look for vacation rentals. I mean, most people are going to these Airbnbs because they don't want to pay the price for hotels. Hotels are, of course, highly regulated industry in Canada, and yeah, there's a big cost associated to that. I suggested in my last video, I don't know why they don't apply the regulations from the hotel industry on Airbnb. This would free things up where you're not infringing on people's rights to do what they want with their property, but you're just at least making it a fair assessment for hotels in competition with these Airbnbs. Now, these Airbnbs have largely been taking up a lot of the market share for hotels, as I suggested here. Now, this woman here, Deborah Sheets, is one of the in one of her units in the Janyan building in Victoria on October 17th. She bought units to serve as a retirement investment and is now shocked to see the province's plan concerning short-term rentals. Now, there's a lot of people that don't feel very sorry for someone like this who's taking a piece of rental property away from renters, away from people that could be getting into this property, and offering it up as a de facto hotel. Again, biting into the industry, the hotel industry in Victoria, for example. Many Airbnb operators and property managers say that BC NDP government's proposed crackdown on short-term rentals will kill their businesses or wipe out their retirement investment. A lot of people were bought into real estate thinking that this would be a great retirement investment. It's a bubble. It's a bubble, and guaranteed, even if the BC government didn't do this short term, you probably will lose a lot of money in that market because of the crash that's looming in the British Columbia and Canadian rental market. I mean, I think it was Bloomberg News that called it the largest real estate bubble ever. Like ever in world history. So here we are. I just hope my investment doesn't come crashing down on me, says Deborah Sheets, who operates an Airbnb in the Janyan building, which overlooks Johnson Street building in downtown Victoria. She was responding to BC NDP short-term rental accommodations ruling. And we'll get into what David Eby had to say here.
If you live in a city with 10,000 people or more, there will be a provincial legal requirement that you not operate a short-term rental unless it is part of your principal residence, either a secondary suite or a laneway home. In addition, we are eliminating what are called non-conforming clauses. It's a technical loophole that allowed, in Victoria, for example, 1,600 short-term rental units to continue operating despite municipal rules that apply to everybody else. As of May 1st, those rules will apply equally across the city, and that loophole will be closed. The second action is we're establishing a floor across the province for municipalities 10,000 or more to ensure that the same rules are in place across British Columbia and backing it up with provincial enforcement. a new enforcement team that will support the efforts led by municipalities and regional districts. And then finally, we're increasing the fines associated with breaking the rules for both individuals who decide that the rules shouldn't apply to them, as well as for the platform companies that would decide to flaunt these rules. This accountability is essential and will support local governments with the data that they need from these platforms to be able to ensure that their bylaws are effective. These actions will return literally thousands of homes back to the market. We are taking an all hands on deck, all of the above approach to housing. This is one more step in our larger housing strategy to ensure BC is a great place to visit for tourists, but also to live for the people who make this province go.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people that are moving out of the province because they can't afford to live here. New rules would impact municipalities with a population of 10,000 or more, and smaller communities within a 15-kilometer of a larger municipality. Now, what's not mentioned here is that there'll also be allowed, smaller communities will be allowed to opt into this rule. So smaller municipalities are eligible to opt into this if they voluntarily opt into this. It will effectively wipe out the business model for real estate investors and property management companies with dozens of short-term rental listings. Under the new rules, they will have to convert those units into long-term rentals or face hefty fines, or occupy the unit. You can move into your house if you want to move into your house. That's a thing. It's just you won't be allowed to rent these out as Airbnbs any longer in this circumstance. You can't just buy a piece of property and then rent it out as such. We need the houses in British Columbia, and these are the new rules that are taking place. Sheets, who is the woman who originally I mentioned here in this article, whose principal residence is in a rental home in James Bay, purchased a 250 square foot unit in 2017 with the intent of renting it on Airbnb to fund her retirement. This is a little bit of irony in this whole thing. She lives in a rental house in James Bay and rents out this property in a place that's not a retirement community. I mean, you can't make that up. And this is why I say there's a lot of dry eyes when it comes to this kind of thing, where, you know, we've got people who have put money, they've invested into the real estate market when, I mean, we would call this, for all intents and purposes, malinvestment. When interest rates were so low for so long, it pushed a lot of people into real estate instead of savings. It pushed people into real estate. It's bid up the prices of real estate, and now you're gonna see situations like this where people are only investing in real estate for, you know, short-term gain, short-term rentals again. And things like this. Now, as they crack down on this, this is going to put a lot of downward pressure on the prices of real estate as well, exacerbating the situation, in my opinion, because people will not be able to afford the mortgages that they took out to get these properties if the intended purpose was to rent this out in the short-term rentals. They wouldn't be able to make the money they need to pay the mortgages in the short term, in the long-term rental market. So this will put a downward pressure on the price of real estate as more homes go onto the market, and well, no, don't sell, because they're not really selling at the moment in British Columbia. And this is just information that I've been getting from insiders in the real estate market. But hey, if you have a different opinion, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about this whole situation. Did I get it all wrong, or is this right? Is Chrystia Freeland doing the right thing by jumping on this and trying to make this a nationwide thing where they're gonna limit Airbnbs all over the country? Would this actually put downward pressure on the prices of homes, causing a deflationary action in the housing market? I know that interest rates being so high is causing that, but let's see where it goes. We've only got, the sky's the limit, I guess. We're in the sky when it comes to the price of housings. So I guess the ground is the limit on the downfall of those prices. Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.